Hi, Stephen here again from Cultarity Free Church with day 14. And our picture today is a lion. And we're going to tell the story of Into the Lion's Den, the story of Daniel. After Jeremiah's letter, God's people waited for God to keep his promise. They planted gardens, they built houses, they started families. But most of all, they counted the years and they waited for God to bring them back. They remembered God's promise. Even though they felt alone, they knew that God was with them. Even when it was hard, even when they didn't listen, even when they were miles away from home, God did not forget his people. So he sent another prophet to remind them that he wouldn't stay away forever. And that prophet's name was Daniel. Now Daniel was one of the smartest prophets who ever lived. He was also one of the hardest workers. And he had a special skill just like Joseph back in Egypt. Daniel knew how to interpret dreams. That was a winning combination. So it shouldn't surprise you that the king, named Darius, gave Daniel a great job and an important title. Daniel might have been far from home, but the king had given him lots of power. Some people got jealous of Daniel though. They wanted the great job that he had and his title for themselves. So they started plotting to destroy Daniel. They had their plan. Everyone knew that Daniel loved his God, and he prayed to his God 3 times a day. They knew that Daniel always did this, so they decided to get King Darius to make a law that everyone was only allowed to pray to the king. Now, of course, you know that's a bad idea because people should only pray to God. And Daniel knew that too, but the king didn't. And according to this new law, if people didn't pray to the king, they'd be thrown into the lion's den and be eaten by the lions. So when the bad guys came to the king, it was over in a heartbeat. The king heard their idea and loved how important it made him seem. He loved the idea of people praying to him and worshipping him. He didn't know that this would hurt Daniel. He signed the paper, and just like that, the law was the law, and Daniel's life was in danger. Daniel heard about the new law, but he prayed to God anyway, just like he'd always done. He went to his room, closed the doors, and he prayed, just like he did every day. The bad guys were listening though. They knew that Daniel had broken the law, and they dragged him before the king, telling the king that he'd been praying to God. And they demanded that because of the law, Daniel be thrown to the lions. The king realised at this point what had happened. He regretted the law, but he was stuck, because the laws of the Medes and the Persians could not be changed. And so he had his soldiers throw Daniel to the lions. But even as they did, he said something that almost sounded like a prayer to God. The king said, "I hope your God rescues you." The king couldn't sleep all night, but the next morning he ran to the lion's den. He peered his head in and yelled, "Daniel, are you there?" "You bet," answered Daniel. "You thought I was alone down here, but I wasn't. Along with these lions, God was with me. And even when it was dark, even when I felt alone and afraid, God was here. He protected me." Daniel wasn't the only one that God was using. Miles and miles away from home, he was using other prophets and other animals to get all kinds of people ready for his return. And every single day, he still prayed, "God, we have sinned, and you drove us away. But even in Babylon, I still hope, and I will still pray, God, will you come back to stay?" Join us tomorrow for day 15.